Hey Sunrise, it's Andrew with your small group questions for this week as we move into week 3 of our series, The Christian Home. And so last week we talked about marriage, the first part of marriage, really mostly focusing in on wives and leading into the image of the body and the head, touching on husbands and their responsibilities. And this week we really dive into the role of the husband, as well as looking at, again, this bigger picture of Christ and the church and how Christ nourishes the church and how Christ sustains the church and builds the church up. And so as we enter into this text, of course, the first thing that we do when we come to verse 25 through 33 is how does it directly connect to what we talked about last week? What are some of the overlapping themes? How does it bring it together as a whole? So there's a whole picture now of marriage that's put on display in this text. And so, of course, one of the first things that we see, husbands, how do we love our wives? So how is a husband, Christian husband, called to love his wife according to this text? So then what are some practical applications? What are some practical ways you can do this that the text would lay out for us? What can be gained from thinking about that idea of Christ's love for the church? How does that shape our marriages? The picture of Christ and his church, the love, the submission, the respect, the grace that all is working together in this. How do we see that in the text and be worked out? Then as you think about it, the idea of the sanctifying work of Christ and his church, as well as the love husbands have for their wives, what is also made then from this image of body? So we talked about the church as an individual body. We see play out in the book of Ephesians. Now he directly applies it to men thinking about their own physical bodies. How we love our wives reflects how we love our physical selves, and using a correlation. Why does he go there? Why is that an important aspect in his argumentation? And then of course he then transitions into Genesis and looking back at the original separation. So a husband will leave his father and mother and the two will become one flesh. Why is the one flesh imagery important for our discussion? How does that help us see what all of this working together means? And then lastly, of course, we see that idea of husbands love their wives, wives respecting their husbands. Why do you think Paul delineates these things? Why do you think Paul doesn't just cause both to love one another, but rather has this love and respect? And how does that work with what was talked about earlier in our text? We talked about the head and the body and the love and all of these pieces working together. So as you work out this text well in your small group, hope that you'll dive deep into your own personal study, really leaning into what it means to live out the faith well together as believers in marriage. Can't wait to see you guys on Sunday as we work through the text together and again.